Hello. Um, so I'm not sure if you can see the stream, so because I'm pretty new to that. Can you see? Can you see everything? Hey, okay. So it seems to work. All right. So as I mentioned, this is going to be just a small practice routine. I'm going to write a round virtually, round 431. So if you want to solve the problems by yourself, you should probably skip it. And if you did already solve the problems, please don't spoil the solutions in chat so that I can solve them myself. Okay, so let's say we'll start in 3 minutes. In 2 minutes. Okay. The reason I've chosen to do this is first, I want to solve the problems. Second, it is a good part of your practice routine to write some virtual contests. And also, I will probably not be too bent on having good results, so I can dedicate more time to doing some explanations, probably answer questions. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I hope everything goes well with the stream and you can see everything. Please ask your questions in the chat. I will look at it now and then. After the contest finishes, I will try to upsolve what's called, which is to get the problems accepted that I didn't happen to solve in the actual contest. This is always a good idea to do that after you did a kind of a competition. I hope that I will not have to resort to editorials, but well, we will talk probably later about how we do that. Hello. Let me just grab a small piece of paper. Okay. I'll switch to English. Okay, the first problem. The explanation is a bit fuzzy, so to save time, I'm going to look at the examples. Okay. So I think I know how to solve this one. So you have to construct a string so that you have a bunch of letters, and in your multi-segment you can merge two strings by paying some product. So for each character you are paying. If you are merging string S with string T, you are paying how much characters for each character, how much time it's present in the first string and in the second string, and then you're paying the product. So it actually doesn't matter if you are if you are constructing a string, and it doesn't matter which order of operation you do, because for each particular character, if there are k characters there, then the cost will always be k times k-1 over 2. Because if you just look at a particular string, then you can see that you are in the final string you are kind of paying exactly once for each pair of occurrences among these. Okay. It's kind of a, I don't know, a kind of a standard fact which you happen to know if you solve a lot of problems. So the thing about the problem A or problem C in the second division is that they may have to require some kind of general knowledge in that respect. I'll just go with a greedy algorithm. Hopefully that works. Okay, so it probably works. Yeah, sorry if there's a problem with. Okay, so that worked. With like if the picture freezes, I'm not sure how to configure that properly. So hope it's okay. Okay, so the problem is some guys moving from bottom or from the left side of the border, and when they can wait for a few seconds before they start moving, and when they are meeting some other guy that moves in an orthogonal direction, then they'll just bounce off each other, kind of. And for each guy we want to find where they stop, basically. So okay, we know that if we wouldn't care about, like, if all the guys were indistinguishable, then we would just ignore the fact that they bounce, because we could just pretend that everyone preserves their direction. But since we have to find the actual final position of everyone, then that may get a little more complicated. So we actually want to find the permutation of all the guys in the final configuration. So we probably, I'm not sure, but we probably can simulate that like straightforwardly to look for collisions, because the number of collisions can be too high. I think so, yeah. Okay, so if we were to write an equation that two particular guys collided, that would be something like the waiting time for the first one plus the coordinate equals to the waiting time for the other guy plus his coordinate. So we know that we can split the guys into groups. Yes, so for example, here the first and fourth and the fifth are in the same group, and here we have another group. So each of these groups kind of forms a grid of how they bounce, and we just have to we can just figure out what will the resulting configuration be. Okay. Okay, so since the guys in the same group never change the order with respect of how they how they ordered in this direction, then we just have to output them in the same order. So for example, here are the three positions, the starting positions, and here are the three finishing positions. So we don't have to simulate how they bounce. We know that this order 5, 1, and 4 must have to coincide with this order. Okay, so we just split the guys into groups, and here we go. There's probably a bit more to that. Just let me think about it. Okay, so it should be difference actually. Yeah, the difference here, here, and here is -9, so this is. We'll still have to store the positions, right? Okay, when we want to go. We want to sort the dancers in the same group by this order. So for vertical guys it has to be decreasing. You okay there? Okay. Okay, so we have sorted the dancers, and we know that in this group they go in this particular order. So we have to find their positions, their finishing positions that will go in the same order. Okay. this is not needed anymore. No, it doesn't work. For some reason it doesn't work. Okay, maybe a simpler example. No, it still doesn't work. Okay, what happens? So I made a bug and I'm not sure where. Oh, I see. So everything is vice versa actually. have messed up vertical and horizontal directions here. Like, it can be vertical because they stand on the vertical wall, or because they can just move vertically. Does it work? Yeah, it seems so. Yeah. Let's just check that if everyone collides, then it's okay. So in this case, the first guy in the order would be this one, and he should finish at 1-3. This is 2-3. This is yes, no. Doesn't seem right. No, it was right. Okay, just had to double check. You okay then? Is there still a problem? Okay, it worked. Nah, not sure if I can do anything. Okay, so it seems to kind of work. I'm not sure. Still bad. Okay, so finally these problems with the stream are resolved. I can get back to the problems now. I'll just read the rest of the problems so that to know what happens. Okay, so the problem is like a kind of complicated dynamic programming, but okay, let me try to go for that. Okay, so it would be like a not very hard problem, but we have this condition of counting non-isomorphic graphs with certain conditions. So we have to be very careful about the order of how do we add the graphs. So you've probably read the problem, but it states like you have an edge between the start and between the source and the sink in the graph, and then you can apply a transformation that is, if you have an edge already in this graph, like for example, if this is the starting edge, that you can add a triangle with this vertex here. And for each subsequent step, you can choose any of the edges already present. So you have to count the number of different graphs that can be obtained, and by different I mean non-isomorphic, that is like reliable in the vertices other than the starting two it doesn't consider to change the graph. And you also have to count the number of these graphs with the specified value of minimal cut in this graph. Yeah. So to solve this, you can go with dynamic programming. What is the number of different graphs? And then you have to like there can be several triangles on the original edge, and each of them has kind of fractally another structure of the same type merged. Like this triangle is kind of a smaller structure with this vertex at the start and this is at the finish. So we have to consider all ways to place these triangles with these smaller things on them, and so that the value of minimal cut is taken into account. And also if we choose to take several isomorphic triangles like these two ones, then we don't have to count like their order as different configurations. We have to count them all the same. So there are a lot of details. I'll probably go and try to work that out. You okay there? All right. So okay, I'll just finish a bit more. doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work, doesn't work. Oof, okay. May want to beat it, like, may want to give it a little extra thought. But that's okay. So I will turn the camera on off by a small moment. Are you okay? Alright. I'll get back within a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. So probably I have figured it out. I hope I'm not going too inefficient, but we can think about it later. work from the very start, but it's probably okay. Okay, no. Okay, that's correct. This is not correct. This is also not correct. Okay. Okay. Oh, not okay. Yeah, that seems to work. Oh, come on. kind of losing track here. I'm sorry. Come on. Okay. At least one case works. And another case doesn't work. Seems like I'm still counting something too many times. wonder if the contest is already over yet. No. Right. Oh, okay. Probably I shouldn't do that. Well, What? So my code finally seems to work, but the answer is very, very slightly smaller than the actual answer. I don't really care about getting like good results, but this is very frustrating. don't know what my problem is. Probably still works infinite time, but I put it something like, yeah. So even if I find, oh, okay. There's still hope then. What? Why? What? What the hell? Something very strange. What happens? It doesn't make sense at all. What the hell is going on? This doesn't make sense. What was going on? can't even like think about how to find the error because it's so weird and comes up in very weird cases. So in this case, if I change something, it still works, right? The same. So it's still the same, but once we have a case like this, it starts going all over the place for some reason. Oh, hello. Well, it's not that the problem is like too tough. I think my solution is correct in the like theoretically, but it just behaves so weird. I like didn't see this kind of thing in a long time. So I'm not sure what to do now. No, thank you. Yeah, this was probably not a very good participation. Yeah, I certainly need more practice because I'm not sure what is even this thing, like what's going on. It's a fairly short code. Yeah. So in short, the solution is just try all possible values of how many operations we do and what is the value of minimum cut, and then we split our graph into, well, there's obviously one edge from the start, and then we start doing these triangles with something on top of them, and we also do a second dp to count the number of triangles with, like, we know how many operations we need to build them, and also what is the value of minimum cut. So to recount the first dynamic of everything in total through the second dynamic, we try all possible values of what is what are the parameters of the triangle, and then we choose how many copies of this type of triangle we will take. And since we only have to since the permutation of the same options is basically the same, we want to do something like when to go with binomial coefficients. For example, if there are 3 triangles which with the same parameters, and we want to take 2 of them to go from one configuration to another, then the number of transits is 3 plus 1, choose 2. So the place in my code where like t is exactly this coefficient, the binomial coefficient for the number of transitions. And in this cycle, I and j is these parameters of the whole configuration. Pi and pj is, well, I and jj, which are not very good names, but I wasn't trying to write very readable code. So this is the previous configuration where we start from. Then we consider all transitions with like these triangles of parameters pi and pj, and c is the number of copies that we take. So we have to do this because we have to treat with the isomorphic options. Okay. Please absolve SRM 719. I don't remember. Did I solve it like when it even was? I don't exactly remember. Yeah. Oh, so you are the author, right? So can you confirm that my approach is correct? Maybe. Okay. So I didn't read the last problem. Seems interesting. Yeah, probably some bugs. Usually, like, these are very, very dumb bugs in these solutions of mine. Like, the previous bug that I fixed is that I was computing inverses modulo a prime, and this line was missing. So I usually do that like I just place -1 as the second parameter of that's actually binary power. Tag is binary power. So usually I place -1 here, and with this string it's equivalent. So I know that -1 stands for inverse, but without this string it does compute actually the first power instead of the inverse. So I was looking at all of my formulas and couldn't find a bug. Then I look at this array and it just numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, I do this a lot. Okay. The thing that I'm wondering about problem C in particular is that, like, it can be solved pretty much straightforwardly with a two-dimensional structure, and like if there is a simple solution for the problem C. So since I didn't come up with it during the contest, and I don't exactly want to do want to think about it more. So it's n log squared, right? Yeah, it's just a standard problem on a two-dimensional structure, just as I was thinking. Yeah, this is disappointing because I was thinking that problem C on the Codeforces round it may contain some data structures, but I don't remember the last time it was a two-dimensional data structure. Yeah, so I was thinking that this requires maybe one-dimensional structure or a set with like just some clever processing. So Yeah. So for this problem, I said before that I would solve the problems, but I don't think there's a lot of point in it, because this is just a standard problem that I can implement. Maybe if you're interested into like how to write two-dimensional data structures, I may do that. Still, it might take some time, and I may do some bugs as well. The problem, yeah, I have the code, but it doesn't work. It would take probably some grueling hours to find the bug. So I'm not very much up for that as well. The problem is, like, I could solve that probably, but since nobody solved it, it would probably take a lot of time. And by looking at the constraints, like with this modular and with this number and with this time limit, I would probably think from the start that this problem requires some kind of f of t, maybe. Yep. All right. Like, I wouldn't care probably up solving the problems if not for the streaming purposes. So the thing I wanted to talk about is having practice. And one thing that you may want to do is write virtual contests from time to time, since that it kind of like you get the feeling of how you perform during the contest, and maybe some problems come up, like you get too anxious, or you are just too hasty when writing your code and making a lot of bugs. So you may want to watch for that. This is probably not the only thing you should do in your practice. Like, in Codeforces, there's obviously an hierarchy of all the problems. That's it's a good source of practice, in terms of it has problems of different difficulty. Like, you can solve the problems by difficulty, and then basically you have the easiest problems, which are like very easy, and then you have the hardest problems, which are just very hard. And so the point is, yeah, the other good thing is that a lot of different topics are presented here, and also you can see that, well, if you enable it in your profile, you can see the topics for the problem. So arguably, for any level of a person who comes to practice, and any kind of topic, if he wants to improve a particular topic, there is a problem that's good for you. So if you want to dedicate some time and solve some problems, the first thing for you to do probably is to find your level, which is like, maybe if you're just starting out, then even the first page contains some problems that are hard for you. That's okay. That's totally okay, because like, it doesn't make sense to hurry and go for harder problems if you are not like, if you have troubles with easier problems. So it like to go beyond some level, it takes just solving a lot of problems, basically. Practice just reduces to solving a lot of problems. So you may want to open some problem. I'm not sure how actually to solve it, because it's probably easy. It was problem A from some division to round. But anyway, you might want to go through a few, like open the first page and solve like 10 random problems. If all of them are easy for you, then you may want to go to the maybe next page. So at some point you will come up to a level of difficulty that contains problems which are not all just like very straightforward for you. And at that point you may want to like, at that point it's just grinding time, when you just solve problems one by one. And yeah, so obviously it's not enough to just come up with a theoretical solution to the problem. You have to get your code done and get it accepted. If you are like, if you are looking for an easy practice, just solve some beautiful problems theoretically without writing the code. That's maybe okay. But when you're writing the code, you're actually improving your implementation skills, and also picking up some new techniques is important when you're writing the code. So if you can solve a problem, like you've dedicated a lot of time to thinking up of a solution, then you may want to think some more, obviously. But if you're like, it doesn't make sense to, punish yourself with thinking too much. Like, all of the problems have tutorials here. Some of them are involved. Some of them are just short explanations, but anyway, they may give you some new ideas that you want to use in your solution. Then you go to writing your code, and another hurdle that may be there is that you're not sure how to go about writing a particular idea that you have. So if that's the case for you, maybe you're not very good with the language, which is okay as well. In that case, all of the problems here have solutions. Maybe some of them are reference solutions by authors, and also you can go into a contest page and then go into standings and then open a random solution, so that to see how other people who are maybe more familiar with that, how do they go about implementing this kind of solution. So that's how you work with a problem, and the rest is just grinding up the problems. At some point it may be the case that the idea involves a kind of theoretical knowledge. Like, it may be just a common idea, it may be a certain algorithm that you're not familiar with. This is usually mentioned in the editorial, that this problem requires DFS or something. So in this case, if you are at the level that you have to get familiar with a certain algorithm, that you just really pick up a book and read about. Also, Google is your friend. Like, if I were to find some explanation of DFS, right? So there are some explanations on Codeforces, there are some explanations on other sites, there are even explanations on YouTube with small video lectures. There's also Wikipedia for a very high level explanation. So yeah, this is how you go about it, about learning new techniques and algorithms. There are also, of course, algorithmic books like Corman and some other books, which are probably better in some aspects. I cannot exactly recommend any particular like book that encompasses everything, but if you have a good book, that may help. Okay, so this is how you go. Basically, I want to emphasize once again that getting better means solving a lot of problems. Even if you're solving problems for a year and not like you're not thinking that you've like gained 500 points in rating and life is bad. Well, that might take some time. Like everyone has his own pace. I know that for me, I've been doing solving these kind of problems for 10 years, maybe even more than that, but like I didn't get very good results until I was in the senior years in the university. So that like 7 years maybe of practice before you get the results. Like it's not even about the time that you invest into practice. Even like if you like solving the problems, then you won't feel bad about spending time, like, even if that doesn't bring some progress. So yeah, that are my thoughts on practice. Let's see if there are some questions here. My way of practicing, okay, well, I don't exactly have a lot of time to invest into practice, so that I don't exactly do this kind of sitting down and solving the problems from Codeforces or something. So it's just solving problems whenever a contest comes up or something else. Some of my work that I do for the workshops in MIPT involves solving problems. Like we have to do the editorials for all the contests, and some of them are really hard, like ACM, ACPC, hardest regional, hard. So yeah, for that you have to solve the problems, and sometimes to get more familiar with the problems, I sit down and like solve the contest virtually. But usually I don't have time for that, so it just takes a lot of thought, basically. And that's really good practice for the amount of time I have. Okay, that's kind of my way of practicing nowadays. Yeah, so training for ICPC is a whole lot of another topic, because in ICPC, a great thing that may influence your performance is how well is your team, act together. Because even if all the participants are, international grandmasters or legendaries, even in that case, there may be some kind of hiccups or conflicts within the team, so that it may take a few trainings before everything goes smooth. And there are a lot of small like a lot of tactic issues about spending your time at the computer and telling someone your solution so that he gets so that he checks if the solution is correct. It's like a whole other topic. So this is probably all I want to speak about at the moment. But it's really interesting. Okay. Writing on paper is extremely efficient. At least if you want to, just if you draw a picture in front of yourself of a particular case, that may nudge your brain in the correct direction. So it's a kind of different kind of practice that I sometimes do. I just solve the problem completely in my head without writing on paper. But that is I wouldn't probably recommend that in the general case. Okay, when should I see editorial? Basically when you don't want to, when you feel like you're too fed up with thinking about the problem. It may be the case that you are just not familiar with a particular technique, and you are very unlikely to come up with it by yourself. So it's just when you feel like it. You have to be honest with yourself in the matter that did you actually try everything that you want to? I know that I wouldn't go for editorial when I tried every little thing I know with respect to the problem. So this kind of honesty I'm talking about, but it might be different for different people. And if you think that I've spent a lot of time I want on the problem, then it's okay. It's okay. Training for II is also different. Basically II problems are very specific, and you in the past II there were some very unusual problems in that some of the easiest problems were of unusual type, like open test problem, and some of the participants, even very strong ones, that were unfamiliar with this concept or type of problems, they did very poorly on that problem, and that was something that was a bad situation for them. Another thing to say about II problems is that at least for the last year, I think it was the tendency that that the problems are very much math oriented, I won't say, because they don't exactly involve hard algorithms or complicated data structures. It just, you have to understand what happens in the problem. So that's kind of specific. I would argue that studying math helps to solve these kind of problems. So yeah, as I said, this is a whole other topic, and there are probably people that are much more experienced in coaching for II than me. So yes. How do you commit to a problem on a virtual contest? Okay, so another thing that I didn't mention, but I think it's very important about practice and getting better. It's about the problems which you don't like. So I claim that if you don't like a particular type of problems, then these are exactly the problems that you are bad at. And you don't want to have a certain kind of problems which are bad in if you're going to solve a lot of contests. It's just a situation that when you just hit a barrier, and so if one of the problems is, say, geometry, if you don't like geometry. If you encounter a geometrical problem and you don't like geometry, you are not very good at it, you don't write the code for it very frequently, then it's your barrier, basically, and you don't want to have that. So you have to be very conscious about these barriers. Like, if you really want to get better, and yeah, I was just wanting to say about that. So yeah, for a bad topic for you, maybe you just want to concentrate on that. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not exactly a psychiatrist, so if you have a fear of geometry that's like forbids you to even read the problems and pick them up, then I can't exactly help you. But otherwise, it's just a matter of practice, basically. So I think the fear roots in that you don't know how to go about, like, what are the thinking patterns for solving the problems, and what are the coding patterns. So it's just inexperience in solving and inexperience in writing code. So to overcome that, you just concentrate on a particular topic. Like when I said problem set has a filtering feature, like geometry. Okay, let's seek for geometry. Okay. So here's the list of all geometrical problems, and you can solve it by sort it by difficulty as well, and you just go and solve the problems. So while going through a particular topic, you will you'll get more and more experience. Like, you will get this idea and you will get that idea, and sometimes when a lot of ideas or on a particular topic just settle in your head, then you will feel much more confident. And also, when you write the code to the problems, you will usually repeat the same thing, like implementing like how do you store your points and vectors and polygons and whatnot. So if you do that like 10 times in a row, you will probably get some idea what is the best way for you to do that. And if you don't know how to start about writing some kind of code, you might want to look at someone else's solution, right? Because some guys are more experienced in that than you. So you open some problem, maybe some other one. Never mind. So okay, that didn't work, but you can probably filter by the accepted solutions for any particular problem and look up the code, and maybe not just rewriting the code verbatim, but rather think about what's the idea behind the code, why is it written that way, and maybe borrowing some thoughts about that. Okay. Yes, so that tirade was triggered by this particular question. The whole point of writing virtual contest in comparison with just solving problems one by one is that it gives you some motivation. Probably, like, you can look at the scoreboard and pretend that you're solving the real competition. So okay, DP can be hard. I know that. I was struggling with it for maybe first few years. I was doing that, but keep going. Is all I have to say. Some editorials can be very good and inciting, so if you may want to solve some problems and read the tutorials, maybe. I'm not very familiar with European Junior Olympiad. I know that it exists basically, but I can't exactly say what its level is all about, and especially how to get to gold in 3 days. I don't know if it's exactly possible, but this kind of Olympiad are usually, tailored after IUI, so the same ideas about training to IUI apply here. You may want to, if you're in high school, you may want to ask a teacher if he have some advice for you. Maybe he can set up some trainings for you from some previous Olympiads, or can just direct you to the right person. Yeah, so to learn DP, maybe I already answered that. Just exactly how you learn any particular topic. Just after you solve enough problems in DP, maybe 10 or maybe 12 or maybe 50, you will get the pattern. You will think, oh yeah, that idea is pretty much similar to the previous problem I have solved. And at this point, you are on the right track, because this is exactly what, like, the repetitiveness of the ideas within the problems is what you have to learn the topic. Subject I'm strong in, says. I did a lot of training on math on Project Taylor site. I don't exactly have a lot of time for that, but I still return to it now and then. I don't know. If I find a subject like that I like tend to be weak at, then I get back to that usually and solve some more problems or have some discussions with people who are familiar. So I tend not to have bad subjects. Math books. Okay. I'm not sure. I have math books I like, but it's probably not too helpful. One particular book that I really like about competitive programming is a book Looking for a Challenge by guys from Poland. It contains really good and insightful explanations about very complex problems. So, and the problems are in itself very unusual in that book. So I enjoy it a lot and I would recommend it, certainly. Yeah, so about copying your code from contest to contest. Some people do that. I'm not exactly in favor in it in general, but sometimes when you're allowed to have your library, like on a few years back when I was on TopCoder on site in San Francisco, I had a small library of code that I would not want to write because I was not too confident in that, and it never get useful. So yeah, I know that tourist Gennady Korotkevich doesn't have any kind of he doesn't use any kind of library, so he can implement anything on the go, and he's still freaking fast. So maybe that's not a very huge deal. The best way to think about a hard problem, well, first of all, you have to understand the problem properly. So
work out all the sample cases and get to understand what happens in the problem. After that, you may want to construct some of your own cases and see about how the situation changes there. And if you can notice some patterns, like something is monotonous or something is independent on something, or something can be, you know, summed up efficiently or something like that. When you think on a hard problem, basically you have to have a right pattern in your head that's developed from a previous problem, and you have to find the right pattern and to apply it in the correct way. So if you're not familiar with the kind of pattern that the author is asking for you to have in a hard problem, then you probably have to learn it, and it's when a problem is too hard. Okay. To learn a new technique, grinding the same technique all day is not an exactly good idea in my opinion, because you have to give yourself some breaks, so that it's like even when you solve the problem and when you get the idea, you don't actually get it. Like it doesn't settle in your head until some time in the future, when it just clicks and becomes your idea. So yeah, you probably don't want to everything. You don't want to do the same thing all day. Basically, if you're like, it's important to have fun while you do practice, because otherwise you would get fed up with it and don't want to practice anymore, and that can be the end of your career or something. So it's important to have fun while you practice. Yes. Have you ever struggled with div 2, Ds and Es? The first problem, I remember the first problem that I was like very, very proud of solving. The problem was you were given a number n up to maybe 1,000,000, and you had to write a program that lists all integers from 1 to n that have exactly 2 digits 2 in them. Okay, so it's like 22, 122, 12, oh no, 202, and something like that. So this kind of list. And I was still in high school, like maybe in 8th or 9th grade, and I was very proud when the problem was solved. So yeah, I did all kind of practice. And if you struggle with something, like I probably struggled with the same thing just a few years ago. Talent is like, I don't know anything about talent. It's like, it's more about if the person enjoys what he does. So yes, all right. I don't know if I missed any questions, but since no one asks anything, I'm not sure what, like, do you want me to solve some problems? Like, I think the discussion was enough, and the contest was, it was certainly something else. Wow, existential crisis. Is that a question about practice? I don't even know anymore. I can't answer that. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you want to specify your question, because it just looks weird now. Okay. The best contest ever. I don't know. I won a few rounds. I won a few Top Codeforces Rounds, and I won a few Codeforces Rounds. But that's, I know, it's hardly best contest. I did well on some other contests as well. Like if you're speaking about the on-sites, probably the best would be qualifying to finals from semifinals on Top Coder 2014, when I was third, and there were 2 places qualifying. ID, yeah, it's just the FAR manager. FAR manager. Yes, it's pretty much a minimal DOS-like environment, and the reason I choose it instead in place of, say, Visual Studio is that Visual Studio can be really slow. Like if you're writing the code and you compile, then it just weirdly and slowly, and maybe eventually compiles. So yeah, I write code within this simple environment. It doesn't have autocomplete. It has auto indent, and it has color in the code. So that's pretty much enough, and it's very fast, because like I can type as fast as I think about it. So, and when I want to look for a particular bug, or when I just want to see how my solution works, I just copy it into a project inside the Visual Studio, and then I can go line by line or something. Okay. Yes, of course. Even if you look up a solution, so I'm answering this question here. Even if you looked up the solution, it is still very important to sit down and code it and get it accepted, because first, it gets you better in coding, and second, it like verifies that you got the idea in its entirety that's intended, like on solving, required to solve this problem. Doing other than CP, well, I I like, CP is not everything in my life. It is work for me, and I still have a lot of fun even after 10+ years of doing that, but it's by no means everything. I wouldn't even call it a way to go in life. Like, there was some very old interview with Peter when he said, I practice once a week, and otherwise I still live a cheerful life. And I think that's the right attitude. Some regions, I'm not sure. It's probably about the community, because it's different. Some regions have a lot of training camps and just strong universities, so that they can, commute within the university. It's about the culture, probably. Yeah, important contest sites. These are all good. Topcoder is on its down recently, but otherwise. MIP team, MIPT team #1 this year. Hello, Ildar. We are not sure. We have 2 strong teams, and they were performing very close in the Petrozavodsk camp. So the team #1 will be the one that trains the most, is my opinion. So we'll see about that. I have periods when I don't solve problems at all, and it's okay, probably, because, like I said, you don't want to have your life centered around one particular thing, because it can get old very, very fast. I don't exactly deal with it. Like after some time, it just occurs to me that, oh, I want solving the contest is nice, or maybe I come up with an idea for a new problem and it sets my mind on another track. So it's just like I don't actually push myself to do competitive programming. It's just natural at this point. IDE for Java, I don't do Java. I don't do Java at all. So I don't have any suggestions on that matter. I'm sorry. I started maybe at 14, roughly, and I was very bad for a long time. So okay. Yeah, for Russia has a very good community, several strong universities and a lot of camps. So, and Codeforces is actually a Russian side, right? So, yeah, and a lot of good colleges. So it would just validate my answer about the community. Training camps, all training camp is, I wouldn't call this rating very, very weak. Like you still can go well about a lot of problems. The most of the training camps are for ICPC participation, so they are not like centered around individual performance or particular topics. The most of them, at least. So if you've never been to a training camp, you would like it kind of changes your state of mind about training. So you may want to go to one of them just to see what it is what I'm thinking. As I said, if you know your level that you are stuck at about solving problems, you just have to solve a lot of these problems. Okay, probably the 5th time I'm saying it, but you have the problem set and you have the editorials and you have a lot of and you have another, like you can read codes of another people. It's probably, yes. So about Barcelona camps or something like that, you like, if you have an option to go, then probably your university is interested in sending you. So, and because you probably wouldn't go there by yourself, just by paying your own money. So if your university thinks that it's a good idea to send you, then what's the matter? You may want to go. Learn and practice the data structures. Maybe you want to read up the codes of other people on that one, because it can be requiring in terms of language knowledge, right? Like how you store everything in memory, in particular, how do you go about recursive procedures, how do you store the pointers between the data structures. So this is data structures are probably good to, like, just to read some other codes. Do you have intentions to be in the top 10 of Codeforces? I don't have any ambitions about my performance at that point. I've been in top 10 of Codeforces before a few times, and I've been in top, I want to say 3 of Top Coder some time ago. Then I went down. I don't I don't plan to do anything about it. I just plan to have fun and learn some new things, and that's all we do. In early days, there was a time that when competitive programming was much more interesting for me than studying. Yes. Nowadays, I finished my PhD, well, Russian PhD this winter, so probably went well. I have a research position in MIPT, and actually the last day I just returned from a conference in Vienna, and I wanted to unwind, so I did this stream. You have to be you have to respect the studies, okay? You have to respect your research. You can't, other than a very handful of situation, you should put that above the competitive programming, okay? So yeah, you have to be conscious about it. All right. So it's been, let's say, 3 hours into the stream. I'm not sure if I exactly want to do anything. Like if I want to elaborate some more on practice, I'm pretty happy about what I've covered, and I'm glad if you find it helpful. So you have a lot of opportunities, and if you like it, just go and do it, is my point of view. Okay. So okay, one last question. All right. Is P equal to NP? Probably not. I don't know. There was a very recent article about new proof by a very respected researcher, Norbert Bloom, about that P is not equal to NP, but I think it's already disproved at this point. Can't exactly answer in a confident way. How does one improve? Like, as I said, I am not exactly looking for improvement right now, rather than just, if I see a new idea that comes up, I just have to grab it and learn about it. I had plans about making the blog about, well, not maybe my research, because I don't have that great deal of research, but rather some interesting math and maybe something with connections to competitive programming and problem solving. I may want to pick up that idea, and in that case I'll probably keep you posted if I choose to go with that. Yeah, so thank you for reminding me about doing the blog. I may want to do that. Okay, so thank you for coming to the stream, and sorry for the problems in the early few minutes when the stream was too laggy. So I'm not sure if any more streams will be in the recent future, maybe some more screencasts, but streams are something else. So yeah, maybe I'll go in, maybe I'll return to the chat to answer, and I'll just stop the streaming. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you later.